Right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. Just to make sure you're at the right webinar with so many going on, the Helena Kennedy Foundation is hosting our first Fireside chat today with Rosie Wainwright, who is a former winner of the Helena Kennedy Foundation. And Rosie will be talking about the difference the bursary made to her when she was at university in 2013. We're also joined today by Mica Coleman Jones, who's our host for tonight, as well as being a former winner herself. She's now a trustee for the Helena Kennedy Foundation. And Elizabeth Hess will be joining us shortly, hopefully, if technical problems get through. She's here from Kaplan and who helped to get Rosie's bursary sponsored at that time. So my name's Shahida, and I'm the Director of Operations for the Helena Kennedy Foundation. And I know they've got some of our long-standing supporters with us today, so a very warm welcome to you, and also a very warm welcome to some of our new friends that are joining us today. Just to give a brief introduction about the charity. So it was set up in 1998 in response to the Learning Works report by Baroness Kennedy to take forward the recommendations. At the time, there were over 15 million adults of working age with few or no formal qualifications, and many of whom faced significant barriers with or returning to their education. The then principal of Milton Keynes College, Dr. Anne Lim, then set up the charity, which started off by giving one bursary back in 1998, and now 23 years later, we're now giving between 70 to 80 bursaries per year to FE students who want to go to university. To date, we've helped about 2,000 students progress to university, and not only has this made a difference to their lives, but also to their families and the wider society. The charity gives bursaries of £2,250, and these are supported and sponsored by a number of universities, trusts and foundations, and individual donors. Alongside the financial support, we also offer pastoral support to the students, as well as workshops and seminars and a mentoring service, and more recently, a health and wellbeing sessions in response to the current pandemic. And during normal time, we would actually be inviting our winners to the House of Lords reception to celebrate the success. And we pay their travel, and they also get to meet the Baroness and their sponsors, and also to meet with other supporters and winners as well. It's really important to know that we really are a very small charity. There's just myself and a part-time finance and bursaries administrator. And we couldn't run this charity without the support of our fantastic volunteers and sponsors. So my role tonight is to keep an eye on the time, and also to help with any questions that you might like to ask the panel. To help manage this, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen in the webinar. Now, I know Elizabeth isn't able to stay with us till the end, so please do send any questions that you may have for her. Elizabeth, I've already provided an introduction that you actually sponsored Rosie's bursary when she's at university. So I'm going to stay around and just keep an eye on the Q&A. And we are actually on social media platforms, so when I'm off in a second, I'll pop the link in the chat. And then you can tweet us and say hello there and what have you. So in the meantime, to get the ball rolling, I'm going to hand over to Mica, but firstly ask her what she's doing now as her role, and then hand over to her. Thank you, Mica.
Right now, as my role, I'm balancing home learning with home working. I moved to Nottingham just this past year, and I've joined an amazing trust that's based in Mansfield. So the trust has a few schools, and I work at the special school as leader of specialist provision at the moment. And I'm continuing. So I've actually been really fortunate to have met Rosie a couple of times in recent months. We've been part of talking about our involvement and our roles in the charity, and what we want to do and how we want to help moving forward. But tonight is a really good opportunity to shine a spotlight on Rosie and find out more about her story and her journey, and what difference the bursary made to Rosie. So I guess we should probably start from the beginning. I think it would be amazing if you could start by telling us kind of what were the circumstances that you were in at the time of applying for the bursary, and how did you hear about the charity to begin with?
Sure. So thank you, Mica. Spotlight on me, no pressure. So I was at college at the time when I found out about the bursary, and it was really something that it was in passing in conversation with one of my teachers, because I was someone that didn't believe that I could go to university. The mindset that I had was it's for posh people, it's not for people like me. So I was really against it. And when we had like some people that come in to talk to us, people that had been at uni, people that I felt like I could relate to, that kind of sparked that interest to go. And then it was my teacher that suggested, like, you know, Rosie, if you're worried about finances and stuff, because that's what everyone was worried about, is like the debt, the finances, how can you afford to go, then there are bursaries out there to support you, and the Helena Kennedy Foundation was one of them. My circumstances at the time was slightly different to my peers in my class. So I was in foster care. So during that period of my life, up to the age, so the law was a bit different back then. As soon as you turned 18, that's it, you had to get out, you had to live on your own, and that would be the same time that I'd be going to university. So it was like balancing the options of, okay, I'm gonna have to support myself living alone in a flat, go to university, how am I gonna afford my bills and stuff like that. I was on benefits at the time as well, like supplementing while I was studying at college. So yeah, it was a lot.
So you mentioned obviously kind of maybe not being in favour of university, or thinking it was right for you, I guess, at the time. Did you have a concrete idea of maybe what you wanted to do by the time it came to actually applying for the bursary, or was it just a let's see what happens maybe kind of thing?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I had no interest, and then I started to look into it a bit more. And one of the modules that I really liked, so I'd done a business BTEC, and one of the modules that I really enjoyed was the legal side of it, because I've always had an interest in how the world works, why things are the way that they are. So I thought, do you know what, I'm thinking about studying law. And then I went on, so the company that I work for now, the charity that I work for now, Career Ready, I was part of their program, and I had a mentor through that, and I also had an internship. And again, it's like the people that you meet that are like outside of your own network. So the guy that interviewed me, he had a completely different background to me. Like his parents were pushing him to study law at university, but he told me that for him, it opened up loads of doors. He wasn't working in law, he was working in a bank. And I kind of was looking at the nice watch and the nice shoes and was like, yeah, this is like what I want to do. I want to put on my heels and strut around. So that's what kind of sparked my interest. And then I did have to retake my maths GCSE 4 times in order to get there. But once the kind of ball dropped, like, hang on a minute, there are people out there that can do this, and with the extra financial support, it's really helpful. And that's why I think it's great now that the foundation are providing mentors, because it's really, really useful for young people.
Yeah, I think it shows how important it is to have that mentor or that person. If it wasn't for that teacher who knew about the bursary, for example, maybe we're not sure kind of what would have happened. How did you actually find that application process?
So it was so it's funny because we were talking about this the other day, because I've still got emails from Shahida and Elizabeth as well, from all those years ago, and I was thinking that I'm sure like something happened or something wasn't right. And I remember, so because it was literally something passing in conversation at the college, so the college that I went to, it wasn't great in supporting young people that come from different kind of backgrounds in that sense. There was a lot of kids there that were struggling. I wasn't the only one. and it was one of those things, it's passing conversation, and I remember applying and the deadline had passed, or I was like, I literally just made the deadline. And then I remember getting an email from Shahida saying like, oh, unfortunately, we don't have a bursary available. And I was gutted. I was like, oh no, like I'm kind of back to square one. And then there's an email that I came across as well that was like, hi Shahida, like who can I email to say like how amazing, like the amazing job that you've done, because she went above and beyond to make sure that I had that I could have access to that bursary, given my circumstances. So yeah, I got the email when I'd started, I think it was, yeah, when I just started university, to say like, congratulations, you've got the bursary. And I was like, yes.
What a relief. A relief.
It really was. It really was.
And as well, you know, as trustees, we see those applications that come in, and there's so many that we would love to give a bursary to, and it's just absolutely heartbreaking to say, well, actually, you know, we have to pick because there isn't enough to give. So that's why the fundraising and the sponsorship and the awareness raising is so important. I think it would be probably a good moment to ask Elizabeth to join us, just on the back of the fact that it was so touch and go in terms of getting the bursary and then finally having it there. I think there's been one brief encounter before, but Elizabeth, what did you think about Rosie's story?
Well, can I just start by saying how wonderful it is after all these years, it was 2013, that we finally get to meet. And so, hello, it's just fantastic. I think, Mica, what you said is so true, that when we go through the applications, you want to give every single person whose application you're reading a shot. But there's just not enough to go around. So yeah, I thought that Rosie's application really stood out with how persistent and sort of focused, and she just seemed like someone who was definitely going to succeed. And yeah, it was a no-brainer, as they say. Yeah.
How did Kaplan get involved in the first place?
Well, Kaplan's a training and education company, and for years we had supported an international charity, but then we started thinking we want more engagement from our employees, and so we thought, well, let's bring it home. So we looked for a UK registered charity, and we looked for a charity that was very focused on education in some way. And really, the Helena Kennedy Foundation was just perfect. And in fact, when I think about the ethos and the mission of the Helena Kennedy Foundation, their mission statements were like uncannily similar to the mission statement of Kaplan at that time. So it just seemed like such an obvious partnership that was meant to be. So that started about, I think it was 2010. It started a good 6 years of partnership. And I'd have to say that the employees at Kaplan have certainly benefited at least as much as the students that we funded, for sure.
So Kaplan, is it just in terms of fundraising and sponsorship, or are there any sort of other activities that you partner with?
Sure. Well, we started with fundraising, and we created our own 3 Welsh Peaks challenge, which almost killed me the first time I did it. We had to start at 4 a.m. and we were still walking 15 hours later. But it was such a kind of team effort, and such a good way for people all around the country who work for the company to get together, that we had at least 80 staff members who were participating in fundraising for Helena Kennedy Foundation. So it was just a great event. But the more the employees got to know about the charity, the more they wanted to know more about how they could get involved. And we started doing these mentorships where we would pair a staff member with a Helena Kennedy Foundation Bursary winner. And the relationships in some ways were very meaningful to, well, certainly to both sides, but you know, some of them went on past the kind of the date beyond which the mentorship was meant to finish. And I'll just give you one great example. One of the bursary winners' laptops crashed for the last time. It was dead. And her mentor, one of our tutors, talked his wife into parting with her laptop, and he shipped it off to the Helena Kennedy Foundation student, and she had no idea it was coming, and it arrived, total surprise. And what she said, it really stayed with me. She said it wasn't just the practicality of having a laptop that she knew was going to work when she turned it on, but it was knowing that he'd thought about her and that he was really there to support her kind of personally. It was, yeah, very, very special.
And as well, I think so many people have, so many award winners previously have commented on how actually it's not just the financial support that means the difference, but all that coaching and mentoring, the connections, the work shadowing opportunities that really make a difference as well. That sounds great. Shahida, I'm just going to check in case I carry on and there's a pile of questions waiting to be asked.
I haven't got any so far, but somebody did actually send me one during the day. And the question was, for Rosie, what advice would you give to your younger self right now if you could go back?
Oh my God, that is like one of the hardest questions. The best piece of advice, okay, it'll be a couple of things. The first one is like, just be patient. Don't try and like rush everything, like you have time. And I think what reflects that is I've kind of always been like the youngest person in the job role that I'm doing or a placement that I'm at, because I've always had to grow up a bit quicker than my peers, and in doing so I've always kind of ended up in circumstances where I'm kind of ahead but almost like rushing to get somewhere. So definitely be patient. And the second one would be is to just like have faith that things, like a bad time and a bad situation doesn't last forever. It's quite easy when you're that young to think that the situation and circumstances you're in, that's it for the rest of your life, that's all it's ever going to be. And I think that is the key thing that I would tell my younger self is like, don't worry, be patient, like things will change. But that change it has to start from you. And that's the advice that I would give.
And you can use that advice now as well, to be patient, I guess.
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
Especially at the moment. Oh my gosh. Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's the one question for now, Mica. Thanks.
I was just going to ask Elizabeth as well before she ends up leaving us for the next meeting. I imagine there might be some listeners tonight who are maybe not yet involved with the charity. Maybe they work for big employers themselves and are wondering whether that's something that they might be interested in, but might not know in terms of processes or who to speak to. Is there any sort of key recommendations or why they should maybe speak to their employer about having a look at the charity?
Well, I think you know, a company being a company, you always have to make a business case for your activities, and of course, and I think that if you think about, well, at least in our experience, and I can just speak for us, the staff were so, they got so involved, and it wasn't just being mentors, it wasn't just fundraising, but we also got involved by creating a business writing online course. You know, these are teachers, and so they want to teach. And we're also putting a number of HKF students through our accountancy program for free. So there'll be fully qualified accountants at the end of it. And, you know, looking for ways to get engagement from staff is a really important thing for companies these days. And so I think if you make the case that it's a way to increase engagement, involvement in the company's mission, it's a very powerful argument, I think. And obviously it's HR who want to hear about this. I don't know, you know, in other circumstances, but our HR department has been extremely involved in our CSR activities. In fact, they pretty much run those activities. So it's yeah, it's a very it's compelling. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah, so I guess if anyone is listening and thinking that, then maybe at the end of this, head over to the website, which is quite simple and straightforward, hkf.org. Straightforward. And Shahid is your person as well to talk to about that. Rosie, I've got a question. It's something that I'm kind of interested in, especially after looking at all the applications that came through this past year. Sometimes people recognise and write about things that put them at a disadvantage in terms of barriers to learning and barriers to continuing or returning to education. But I often find that sometimes people might normalise the disadvantage that they face. Maybe they don't recognise themselves as being disadvantaged. And I just wondered, sort of, what degree did you find yourself at college feeling like you were facing barriers to learning, and when you went to university, did you still have those barriers?
Yeah, so you're exactly right. It is something that is normalized, because when you're in something and when you're in a situation and you're kind of, you don't have those outsiders, like that outside support necessarily to tell you that life can be different, or this isn't how things should be for a young person. It was very much normal. Did I realize I would never sit there and complain about my situation, and I never felt as though I was at a disadvantage, because I knew that there were people that are out there that had it a lot worse than I had. I've had a roof over my head. I was quite lucky in the foster home that I was placed in. The lady I'm still in touch with now, she's absolutely amazing. And I wasn't an angel. I did throw the couple of house parties when she went away. I'm not gonna say I was a complete angel. But yeah, I know that there's people that have had it worse. And I think it's until you start to broaden your outlook, and then you see like foundations and charities that support people like you, the kind of penny drops where it's like, oh, like maybe I do need that extra support, and that would be really handy. Because the money that I use, I remember I had an interview for an internship and I couldn't afford clothes. So I could not afford to buy like a blazer or like nice trousers or whatever. And I remember going into Matalan and like getting kitted out for this interview, and I got it. So then I had to kind of refresh my wardrobe, and that's kind of something that would be normal for a young person that kind of has that support maybe from their parents and is financially stable. And then I guess when I went to university, definitely, like, it's quite funny because of the way that I speak, and even though I'm from London, I went to London University, I had like really blonde hair. I'm naturally blonde, and there was kind of like a running joke that I was like the legally blonde sitting there with my pink fluffy pencil case. And heads would turn when I would speak up and ask a question. Heads would turn because I I'm not as well spoken as many others. I sometimes stumble over my words because I have dyslexia. It's like those little things. But then I realised it was a barrier at first, and especially because all of my note taking had gaps in, because I had no idea what the lecturer was talking about. And these are normal words in the English dictionary, but I just never had heard of them before. So it was like a lot of work in my first year, a lot of talking to other people, making friends and saying like, can you help me, like what does this word mean? It's like weird little things like that. And then you begin to realize that actually, like, even though I felt like sometimes I was being judged by people turning their heads and looking, those, you know, the privately educated students that were sitting in the front judging me, I didn't see them in second year because they didn't pass. So it was one of those things. But yeah, you notice it a hell of a lot more when you're in uni, and when you tell someone that you've been in care or you're a care leaver, it's either, oh, what's that? Oh, were you adopted? Do you know your parents? Or, oh my God, what did you do wrong? Or they've never heard of it. So it's kind of like, different to adoption, I actually didn't do anything wrong. And yeah, I do know my parents. It's like, it's a lot of awkward conversations.
Well, it sounds like it's a lot of resilience and being able to bounce back. And I think it's great that, you know, you felt confident enough to actually stop and say, I don't know what that means. Can you help me? I do worry about how many people maybe go through those issues and those experiences and maybe don't know how to ask for help or who to ask for help from, or feel confident enough to ask for that help. So I think that's great. So you said you wanted to study law.
Yeah.
You graduated.
Yeah.
What came next?
So all throughout university, I worked. So I had about 4 or 5 jobs while I was at uni. So I was tutoring business studies on a Friday morning. I was working nights in a cab office, and then I started working at a law firm. It was in the summer, and that was through, again, a guy coming in to talk to us, wanting to speak about the barriers of entering in higher education, and I was the only one that sent him an email after, had a chat, went to a few networking events, absolutely, you know, terrifying. And his wife happened to be a lawyer, so he put me in contact with her. I started working at her firm. 6 weeks of hard graft. She then employed me as a solicitor's clerk. So that was kind of whilst I was at uni, and it was family law, and a lot of the cases were kind of a bit close to home. And I realised that, okay, maybe I'm not quite ready to work in a family law setting. So I thought, maybe if I work for a big business in the legal stuff, I won't be emotionally attached to anything that happens in like banking or finance. So I decided to work in compliance, and I up and left after I graduated. I moved to New York, and I worked as a compliance analyst at a company called Legg Mason. And it was eye-opening. And I think a lot of the benefits of being a young person in care is that you build that resilience, and you just want to see the world, because you're in this bubble. You just want to break free almost. I was good at my job and I liked it, but there was something missing. And what I realized is that sitting in front of a computer doing Excel spreadsheets from 9 to 5, getting on that same train, seeing the same faces, was absolutely soul destroying. And I kind of had to really rethink about what I wanted for my career, my future. And something that I'd always done is volunteered. So even when I was in New York, I volunteered for a charity. It was called like Big Sisters, Big Brother and Big Sister. And I used to get the bus down to Harlem and read stories to the kids in the primary school, and I'm sure that they weren't listening. They were just more interested in my English accent. They was just staring at me like, why does she talk funny? And I realized that I needed to do something that had an impact. And throughout uni, throughout college, I'd done my first kind of public speaking session when I was about 17, and I did not have confidence, by the way. I was someone that wouldn't even answer my phone on the bus because I was embarrassed of people hearing me speak. It was a journey. So any young person, if they watch this, I haven't always been confident. It was always like sweat, dry throat, oh my God, and still get like it now. And it was really about helping others, and I needed to do something that, if someone was going through a circumstance like I had or worse, that they shouldn't have to go through that, or if they did, they should have that support there. Because I do believe you either go down one way or the other, but the only way that you can go down the other path is if that someone shows you that that's actually possible. So yeah, came back to London. There's this myth that if you work in the charity sector, or if you want to help people, you don't get paid for it. So anyone that I tell that I work for a charity, they're like, oh yeah, I used to volunteer in Oxfam, the shop once on the high street. So I started working in outreach at the university that I went to. So I worked as a projects assistant, and then within 9 months I was promoted to the strategy side of things, and I was there for a couple of years. And I'd volunteered with the organisation Career Ready as a mentor, and sat on their local advisory board. And I had to do a talk like last minute. I was attending as a guest and the speaker didn't show up, and my now line manager was like, hi Rosie, I know we haven't met, but can you go up and talk about your experience? I was like, okay. And it was great. And then I really got involved with the charity again, and a job came up and I applied for it and I got it. And yeah, and for me it's about, I really love helping young people, but also inspiring other people, corporate partners and things like that, to get involved and show them how they can get involved in things like this.
Yeah, which is kind of proof that, you know, the book doesn't just stop the moment that you give the bursary to, you know, awards winner and that's it. Actually, I think Shahida mentioned it at the start, there is like a rippling effect on the on the back. I know that you're trying to do little waves at me like this.
Yeah. I have got a couple of questions, but I know Elizabeth's got to shoot as well now, so just want to
I'm
say
really sorry. It's so great to see you, Rosie, to see all of you, and it's a real honor to support the charity. So anyway, have a great rest of the webinar, and I'll see you later. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
So one of the questions, Rosie, is where would you like to be in 5 or 10 years time?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So 5 years time, God, I'll be 31, and it's a difficult one, because I would like, where I'm at now is I'm studying coaching. I'm trying to like set up my own business. I'm working for a charity, and I'm kind of evolving in that role of working with corporate partners and things like that. And so I don't know, but I'd like to still be making an impact. I would like to own 3 properties. So I own 1 property at the moment, which is kind of a turnaround from actually I was homeless once. So that's a story in itself. I guess 5 years time, just a director at a company, having my own business. I'll still be running around like a headless chicken, trying to change the world. And yeah, I guess that's where I'd like to be, but have people doing it with me as well. And I think that's what's really interesting about us lot, kind of reconnecting and coming together. It's kind of like girl gang.
Actually, the next question is related to this. Is that what's motivated you to stay in touch with the foundation?
It feeds back to that time when I was at New York, and I was kind of reflecting on what do I want to do with my life, and realizing that making an impact and making a difference is, as cliche as it may sound, is the reason I believe why I've been put through what I've been put through in my life, so that I can go on to help others. Whether that's true or it's just kind of one of those reasons to make you feel better about the bad stuff, I don't know. But when a charity or someone has gone above and beyond and gone out of their way to help me, now I'm in a position where I can give back with my time and helping others. So it's an absolute no-brainer to come back and help the Helena Kennedy Foundation. And you know, the conversation that we had, Shahida, it was like, it was just amazing to hear like how the charity's transforming as well, and it's growing, and to be a part of that would just be absolutely amazing, and it has been as well.
It has been girl gang on some occasions, so we need to recruit some more.
We need some men in here.
But no, that it's a good feel good factor, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And to hear like, and to meet other like alumni of the bursary, to kind of hear about their circumstances, because sometimes you do kind of feel a bit siloed in the situation, like if you don't know anyone else. And it's really strange, like as you get older you begin to, I don't know, have the confidence to network a bit more, and you start to meet people that are either on like the same programs as you, or have things in common. Like I'd connected with someone on LinkedIn who I was put in contact with, an old colleague, because she herself was in care and she wanted to connect with other care leavers. And you know, she's late 20s, early 30s, and she now mentors for my charity. We've been out for coffee, and that was like through a LinkedIn connection. It's obviously before coronavirus, but yeah, so it's the power of networking and kind of creating a community is really what's going to drive Helena Kennedy Foundation forward.
So if there's anyone in the participants now who hasn't yet got involved with the charity, what would you say are the best ways to get involved, or how they can support the charity?
Sorry, that cut out then. What was that?
Sorry, I've got my little boy waving in the background. You can't get away from it, can you? My question was, for anybody listening who hasn't yet been involved with the charity, or necessarily know how to get involved or what they can do, what would you recommend?
It's just starting a conversation, isn't it? And that's it. It's, if you're watching this today and you're thinking, you know, I want to help out, I want to donate, I want to host some sort of event and fundraise, then just get the conversation going. Like, we're all here to help, support that in any way that we can. And Shahida's amazing and gets things done, so see you rolling your eyes. So yeah, it's just starting a conversation. Yeah.
Somebody's just mentioned in there, Dr. Lim, that we can create a boy band. Because Mohammed, who was at the AOC conference where the 20-year the impact report was launched, where Misha, where you were as well, I think it just, everybody's so busy right now, and you know, we have had winners, they come and go, but what's really nice is that I think there's even some winners who are attending today, is that if we need anything, we can literally pick up the phone and say, oh, you remember you did that thing 2 years ago, can you just come back and now do this? And you know, so Dr. Abdi, he then went back and did a talk at his college, and now I don't know how old he is now, but he's in his 30s now probably. But it's just lovely that, you know, people do want to come back. And then I really don't feel old anymore when I get winners coming back to me saying, hey, I was at university and now I'm twice their age. But no, it's really lovely. But yeah, like you say, so I know both of you are currently, you know, you are alumni, but you're now mentoring students. You know, you come up with ideas for events. You know, if there's any networking opportunities once we're out of this situation, then you know, you'll be joining some fundraising opportunities as well. And yeah, so there's definitely ways to get involved.
And I think that's two-way as well, because like I've said before, it feels like a family. So, you know, how many times do we pick up the phone to each other, you know, for some advice or to answer a question? So it's a special connection.
Definitely, definitely. So we've had another question as well. How can a current bursary holder help HKF? So to answer that question, I think we have got some current bursary holders joining us tonight as well. So some of the things you can do is become a mentor for us. And if you've got any IT skills, maybe get in touch with me and I can give you a wonderful job of updating things, doing like website, social media. I think it depends on how much you want to get involved, because, you know, we really are a small charity at the end of the day. And we've only got so much resource, but anybody who wants to get involved, you know this, that, you know, we will give you our time. And I think it's a two-way thing. So volunteering for us as well. You know, I truly believe that if you volunteer, if you are volunteering somewhere, you need to get something out of it. And both parties, you know, should be learning from each other. So, and of course, there's always fundraising opportunities. You want to do a bake sale or do a tea sale, or, you know, when we're out here, or even do like a virtual fun run. I know somebody did a Christmas fundraiser for us. And I know, Mica, you did that 24-hour live stream thing where you didn't sleep all night and you raised, what was it, £1,300 for us? Yay, go Mica.
I'm probably going to pick something different as an activity next time. But I spent 24 hours making resources for children.
But you raise money, you know, you raise money for us. And now that we'll be able to, you know, give that money to another needy student. But, you know, it's the cycle continues. And then, you know, when Alfie grows up, hopefully the charity will still be around as well. So, yeah, there's different ways. But yeah, just talk to us. And, you know, there may be something you're really good at that we're not aware of, and then we can pick up on that as well. So I hope that's answered your question.
Yeah, and I think just spreading the word is so important. I just think back to Rosie's situation and my own personal experience. You know, sometimes we're just so fortunate that that one person, you know, knows about the charity and can spot somebody who would really benefit. So raising awareness is really important too.
Definitely. We'll get our the Instagram is up and running, soon be popping off.
Yeah, I did pop the Linktree link in the chat function, so it's got all the links to YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm sure I missed one of them out, but yeah, all the links are over there. Linktree is this fabulous thing that one of our volunteers told us about, and again, you know, we're learning from the youngsters, so we've got on board with that as well.
And there's going to be more conversations like this one, which I think is really exciting, because we're going to get a chance to hear from different people who've had different experiences. And Rosie has shared so many top tips tonight. There's going to be inevitably more of that to come.
Definitely. So we have 15 minutes left now, Mica. Time check.
Okay. Going to say, were there any more questions?
There is another one that came during the day. That what do you think you'd be doing right now had you not been to university and got the bursary, etc.? You know, how different would your life be right now?
Oh my gosh.
Oh gosh, that is a big question, actually, isn't it?
Huge question. My God, do you know what? I honestly don't know, and I don't think I would like to know either. The situation I was in, it wasn't great, and I could have easily gone down the wrong road. And I think for me, like, there is I rang up Katie Hopkins and had an argument with her on LBC not too long ago about this subject, about people studying subjects at university that mean nothing and whatever she was rambling on about. And the thing for me, it was like, no matter what you're studying or whether or not you use it in the future, because you will, you know, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm really good at writing. My research skills have improved, and just being able to network with people is a lot easier because I've gone to university. It's the other skills that you develop while you're there, and being someone that, you know, where you grow up in an environment. And I went to university, and one of my best friends, she was from Ukraine, another one from Pakistan, like from all around the world. I'm meeting these people, and it's just incredible to kind of broaden your network and see see how other people live, if that makes sense. And I think that's what happened to when I went into foster care. That's what happened to me. I had that moment where I went into someone's home and it wasn't like normal. Like, she had kids that were older, moved out, but they would come around for dinners and they would have nice normal conversations, and that wasn't the norm in my household. So it's like being able to see that and experience that is really what's life-changing. So I honestly don't know where I would be. I would probably still, do you know what, Shahida, I'd probably still be working 5 or 6 jobs. I'm still doing similar now. I don't just have the one job. I don't think I ever can. I'm always doing some other side hustle. But yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I certainly where I am now.
I think your message would be really reassuring to young people who maybe feel a little bit stressed by the fact that they don't know what they want to do career-wise, and what if they go to university and study something that they don't use in the future. Actually, what you're pointing out is there's so much that you get from that experience. You know, do something that you just enjoy and have a love of learning, and all those things pick up on will be transferable in the future.
Exactly. And do you know what, I'm not saying that everyone should go to university. University isn't for everyone, and there are so many other opportunities now for young people as well, like apprenticeships and things like that. And it's about realizing what kind of learning you are, and no matter, you know, it doesn't matter where you are in your timeline of your life. You know, I went to 3 different colleges before I went to uni. I failed my GCSEs. I had to retake them, and now I love learning. I'm always reading books and studying something, getting qualification. I've done my postgrad after uni, just because I enjoy learning now, but when I was younger I didn't, and I think it's because of the circumstances and the external pressures that I had was due to that as well. So yeah.
What would you, but if you had to look back then, what would you say is the turning point in it all, from going from not having a love of learning to suddenly, you know, feeling actually I love learning and I'm motivated by this? Like, what was the turning point, I guess?
So I guess there's a couple of turning points, and the very, very first one was, I remember being dropped off to my foster home and sitting on the edge of the bed and just thinking and having that realization that no one is coming to save me. Like, I now have to do this for myself. And I was thinking, like, what can I do differently from my family? Not to talk bad about them, but like, what can I do differently from people around me? How can I get out of this situation that isn't with no fault of my own? And the one thing that came to mind was hard work and education, and that's when I started to look into things a bit more and started reading. And my mentor actually gave me my first book by Sophie Kinsella, you know, the one that writes the Shopaholic books. Yeah. And I literally I had a boyfriend at the time, and I'm sure that's part of the reason he dumped me, because I wouldn't talk to him because I was just had my head in this book. And I literally read it front to back, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is amazing. And it was the first time I'd ever read a book, and I was like 18. It's insane. So yeah, that was the turning point. And then once you get going, and it's that momentum that you build. So you don't love something until you're actually in it. And there will be difficult times, there will be ups and downs. There were moments I sat in a landlaw lecture and I cried, and people were staring at me because I was like, I don't know what's going on, because I remember I had to miss like 2 weeks of lectures because I had to stay at home because the boiler had broke. I had to wait for the council to come in, like all of these little barriers and things that come up. And when you tell people this at uni, they kind of look at you and like, oh, haven't you got someone that can wait in for you? And it's like, no, I have to do it myself. So yeah, it was that moment of having, the turning point for me was that moment of having no other way. Like, there was just no other choice for me. And the second thing was just getting going and then building that momentum, definitely.
I've actually got another question come in, and we've only got 10 minutes left, so do please get any more questions you've got in. Rosie, so where do you think your innate grit and determination comes from? This is from Anne.
Oh, I keep doing that after every question because they're good questions.
They're really good, aren't they?
They're really good. Gosh, I don't. Again, I think. Oh God, I don't know. Where does it come from? I think it's because it's that fear. I think a lot of it was driven, first of all, by fear of I don't want to end up like certain people that I've been around. I was surrounded by people that took drugs, alcoholics, and I just didn't want to go down that road. So, you know, people being in a lot of debt, and I am driven. I do like to make money. I do go out and do extra bits and bobs. Sometimes I do Uber Eats, delivering, driving and things like that. But the most important thing for me, again, is being able to have that impact. And even if it's, you know, it doesn't what I've realized, it doesn't necessarily have to be the on the ground impact working with young people, even if it's at a high level, like I'm having those conversations or I'm doing something that's kind of filtering down, or, you know, just doing something that is putting something back into the world. And yeah, and I think just that reminder of where I was and where I am, and I do have to keep reminding myself that, and I guess that's where the kind of grit came from, I think. Really hard, but good question.
I don't think there's any shame in what you're saying about, you know, I do like making money. Well, actually, it sounds like to me that it's about security, isn't it?
Yeah.
Knowing that you're able to look after yourself, because it does get to that point where it feels like it's a series of unfortunate events, and the boiler breaks and the tires flat all of a sudden, or, you know, or you have a car and you need to pay for transport, and it can wear you down.
Exactly. And it is literally that moment of like waking up and thinking, I've had enough of this, like I have to do something now, I've had enough of this situation. And definitely you're right, there's 100% some psychology behind the way that I am, and I guess security has a lot to do with it, because when you've kind of been in an environment and you've lacked that necessity, that need of, you know, feeling secure in your environment, then that's something that you probably go above and beyond in when you're an adult.
Yeah. Have we answered both questions? Sorry, I've got notifications in the Q&A.
Yeah, those are all the questions that have been answered so far. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. I think I've covered my questions, I guess. I think Rosie's just given us so much, and I think it was interesting to me how when we started and I said, you know, talk about the circumstances you was in, which you did, but actually throughout the conversation you mentioned other things about the fact that you'd been to 3 different colleges and dyslexia and things that you hadn't mentioned at the start, which sometimes, again, that they might have been disadvantages that maybe you've just normalised at the beginning.
I didn't even realise that I had dyslexia until I went to university, because I missed so much school, and because I was always like pulled out of class, or I didn't have to go to school really. And it was I remember it was after my first exam, and you could go and see the results and look through the paper, and the lecturer had written on the front, check for dyslexia, which I thought was extremely unprofessional. And I was sitting there next to my mate and I was like, what the hell? And then when I actually read back, I was like, wow. And she was like, yeah, Rosie, like, I think you kind of mixed stuff up. And I was like, I've never realised. So I had all of the tests done, and it was like, yeah, dyslexia, dyspraxia, all of that stuff, and you can go and work on a computer and do your exams and have that bit of extra time. And it made such a difference. But it was one of those, it's like, you know, one of those hidden disadvantages that I guess you don't really realise until you kind of get that help again, because I would have just gone through life thinking it's all right, I have to read the pages of a book twice, and sometimes I skip sentences and have to go back, but that's normal, until someone says like, actually, you know, there's things that we can help you with that. So, and
you're clearly, you know, very bright, very academically capable, and you've studied law. You know, if you didn't have that intervention, I guess, you know, I'm sure part of you wishes that you got it sooner, but how many people maybe don't get it spotted, kind of go under the radar, and maybe think that they're not an academic person, or maybe they think university is not for me because I'm not bright enough, when actually it's about not having certain needs identified and supported. I think that's really interesting.
And Mica, if you had said that to me, that I was academic and all of that stuff when I was like 13 years old, I would have probably swore at you. And even like, I have a really good friend of mine that's known me since I was at college, and he always jokes, and he's like, can you believe that you've gone to uni, and that, you know, that you're a homo? Like, sometimes he reminds me and puts it in place, I'm like, oh my god, yeah, because I was never a bad kid, I was just had really bad circumstances, and I would never in a million years class myself as being intelligent or academic or anything like that. I would never, but it's with the extra help and support that I was able to realise my potential. Because again, I remember sitting there reading about being a care leaver, and back then it was like 3% of young people in care go to university, and that's just going to university, that's not studying and passing and going on to whatever, that's just an entry. It didn't even highlight the statistics of young people that drop out in that first year. And I was like, you know, I want to be part of that 3%, but I want to like boost the percentage, and and then I started doing talks to other young people that were in care, that had left care and were at uni, and trying to help that way. It was kind of, that was always my drive, is like, I would see a statistic or someone would say that I couldn't do something, and then it was kind of like, actually, I'm going to show you otherwise, and I'm going to help people to do the same.
I think it's amazing, and I'm sure everybody agrees with me. There's loads of nice comments that are coming up in the chat as well. I think if it's okay, I'll probably just close by saying, you know, thank you to, first of all, to everybody who's shown up tonight and listened to us for our first conversation together. Thank you to Rosie, especially, for sharing her story and what a transformation that has been. And thanks to Shahida, who this would not have been possible without your brains and putting all of this together as well, and all the strategic planning that's happened behind the scenes, and all the test runs that we've done too. And thanks to Elizabeth, who's had to leave us, but it was, I guess that must have been a really nice moment for Elizabeth to actually meet Rosie and to hear her story, and that was really lovely as well. So I know we mentioned it earlier, but if anybody is thinking, you know, I'd like to get involved more, please do. Everybody's super friendly, and we can possibly pull together a boy band and have some fundraising events. And make sure you check out the website as well, and stay tuned for the next conversation, whenever that may be. Do we have a date?
We don't have a date, but I think everybody hears, as long as they sign up to the newsletter, then they'll get an alert, but it should be next month sometime, probably towards the end of the month.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Wicked. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night. Take care. Bye-bye.